When Boris Johnson announced the first lockdown in March 2020, seafarers were among those groups of workers designated as key workers. These workers kept global trade flowing. Ships continued to sail from port to port, bringing us all the things that we take for granted. The seafarers on board carried on with their usual routines, working 7 days a week and often 10 or more hours each day. Spending months on board with only their colleagues for company, seafarers are no stranger to social isolation. With the closing of national borders and the cancellation of commercial flights, however, they began to remain on board for much longer than they anticipated. For some, the expected date they were scheduled to return home became a distant memory, yet they continued working on board with no end to their tour of duty in sight. Delays in repatriation were not only difficult for the seafarers themselves, but also for their families, with spouses and children waiting for their loved ones to return home. The separation of seafarers and their loved ones was made even more difficult due to the fact that not all ships had internet on board, and for many seafarers the internet they do have access to can be slow and intermittent, and they may experience limited access. Delays in repatriation resulted in seafarers who were due to relieve their colleagues on board waiting for their turn to join. For those seafarers who are paid only whilst on board, this has meant no income. Seafarers are only human, and some have experienced medical issues during the pandemic just like everyone else. But when medical issues have arisen, some seafarers have been unable to go ashore to access medical treatment. For some, prescription medication is a necessity. While they're well versed at taking surplus prescription medication on board with them in case of delays, none would have anticipated the unprecedented delays in repatriation caused by the pandemic. Consequently, some seafarers ran out of their prescription medication and faced difficulties in obtaining more. Despite the issues they've faced throughout the pandemic, these workers have carried on, out of sight and out of mind. However, findings from a research project which explored the experiences of British seafarers paint a worrying picture. 27% of respondents stated that they had experienced delayed repatriation and remained on board working for longer than anticipated. 1/5 of respondents said that whilst they were on board, they'd experienced difficulties accessing medical care. 12% of respondents stated that they had experienced difficulties in accessing prescription medication. And 42% of respondents said that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a negative impact on their finances. The research recommends that port states ensure that all seafarers have prompt access to medical care and dental care should they need it. It is also recommended that shipping companies and port states take steps to ensure that seafarers are repatriated on time. Finally, it is recommended that the UK government consider the easing of the seafarers' earnings deduction qualifying days in order to assist those who have either been unable to join ships or who have spent extended periods of time in UK waters.